welcome to the Gully Cricket Show. It's me, Shayan, and with me is our older brother, Sharyar. And today is yet another special episode on this podcast, and we would like to welcome a very good cricketer, one cricketer that I followed quite a lot, uh, recently at most, due to his certain achievements as a captain of his national team. Please allow me to welcome Craig Irvine, former captain of Zimbabwe cricket team. How are you, Craig?
No, good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, Craig. So we read about you a lot. And I recently found out that you come from a family of cricketers. I actually did not know you and Sean Irvine were brothers. I just thought that you guys were from the Zimbabwean cricket team, and I didn't know you guys were brothers. And I found out that your uncle and your dad also played cricket. So it looks like cricket kind of runs in your family, it seems.
Yeah, I know for sure. Growing up on the farm back home, we had a lot of sibling rivalry in the garden, especially between the older brother and my younger brother. So I'm actually the middle brother.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my younger brother didn't have the opportunity to represent Zim, but he was also just as talented as the older two. So it was it was nice to grow up in a cricketing family. I think following cricket and going in that direction obviously made the choice a lot easier.
Did your dad ever force you guys, or was it just a natural thing that came up, growing up, or was it like club cricket talent scout that you initially got involved in, or was it just pure, father-son quality time and that got you into cricket?
Yeah, we were never forced as kids to play cricket. There was maybe a little bit of guidance along the way, in some of the choices that we made. I know, at high school, playing all the different sports through high school, you get to a certain stage where you've got to choose whether it's either cricket or rugby. And that's kind of when my dad would come in and kind of lay everything out on the table for us to try and make the best decision. But it was never something that was forced upon us. I think for us, especially my granddad, he would take us to Barrow Sports Club and to go and watch Zim play. We were so passionate about cricket and watching, the likes of Edo Brandis, um, Andy Flower, Dave Houghton, that sort of era playing. Back then as young kids, I think, deep down you had that dream to represent Zimbabwe one day.
So, um, I just because like in Pakistan, the cricket culture is very different. In terms of you have a lot of street cricket, and you'll have some scouts walking around, and if they identify a certain talent of yours, particularly fast bowling, you get fast tracked into club cricket, into uh, first class cricket, and other uh, means of cricket. But how does it work in Zimbabwe? Is it a proper channel that you guys go through? Is it a very raw talent scout that happens and you guys are fast tracked into the system? Or at least in your era or versus now, I guess.
Yeah, so basically back when I was, coming through the structures, when I left school, I actually got bulleted out to a certain region in the country, um, which I then represented the franchise that was in that country through our domestic cricket. And I started in our B League setup. Um, and then from there, I was picked up to go into the cricket academy, which I then spent 2 years in the cricket academy. And then from that, I then went back into the franchise system, but obviously in the A division, um,
Hmm.
and then up to the A side, and then into the national side. Um, Unfortunately, the last sort of 10 years or so, we haven't actually had an academy or high performance center, which I think has probably let Zimbabwe cricket down a little bit in terms of the growth for the younger guys leaving school and trying to get into the system and work their way up. There was quite a big bridge for those youngsters to make it between leaving school and then making the national side, um, which I think you lose a lot of talent, especially to overseas. But currently, there's a high performance center that is being built, and I think there are quite a few talent scouts that are around the country looking at all the domestic leagues that are going around in Zimbabwe and trying to pick off, any talent that is there to fast track them into better systems.
My question about Zimbabwe cricket is, can you give us a rundown on how the structure is in Zimbabwe? So, like in Pakistan, there are we tend to change the system every now and then, but like in Zimbabwe, is it more of a regional setup of cricket, or is it like particular some sort of set of clubs or teams that are playing for, quite a number of time, and then that's how you guys get notified or, highlighted through your performance. So basically, just wanted to learn more about how the domestic structure is in Zimbabwe currently.
So basically, I think if you leading up to our domestic season, you've got your club cricket, which is probably the lowest level of cricket in Zimbabwe outside of the schools. And then your club cricket leads into a competition called Vine Cup. And then the club teams that qualify for Vine Cup then have to qualify for another tournament called the NPL. So the teams that qualify for Vine Cup then qualify into the NPL, which is basically countrywide. And then that NPL will consist of, I think it's 13 or 14 teams, which will then, if you finish top 8 out of that NPL tournament, which is 45 over cricket, the top 8 teams from that then qualify into a T20 tournament, which is like a local club T20 tournament. And you also have, if national players are available, then they'll also play a few of those games, especially if they're also coming back from injury and things like that. And we don't have any international fixtures for a period of time, then they'll play some of that cricket. And then from the NPL T20s, when all of that's finished, then our domestic cricket will start, which will be, your 4-day cricket, your 1-day cricket, and then you'll have your domestic T20 tournament, whether it's at the start or at the end of the season. And then basically the next level up from that would be your Zimbabwe A side, and then your national side. There's also decent school cricket structures where the one school, St. John's College, will have a T20 tournament amongst the schools, and St. George's, the other school, will also have a T20 tournament where you'll have teams that will come internationally from South Africa or possibly Zambia or Malawi or anywhere where they feel like the competitive standard is the same as what we have here.
So how does it, like, how do you remember, like, I know you started in Midlands. That's what I read about your initial cricketing journey. When it comes to your early cricket experience, do you remember your first innings that you played that kind of got you thinking about representing Zimbabwe at the highest level or playing cricket at the highest level? Do you remember your first highlighted innings, I guess, that kind of got you thinking about that next level setup?
Yeah, I think playing for Rhinos, which is the Midlands sort of area, and representing that franchise. I actually started off batting at, I think it was 9 or 10 when I was a youngster, because there was so many good players that were in there, playing with
Yeah.
the likes of, Travis Friend and my brother, and Doug Marulia, and all of those guys who were very well established then. Um, and then when those guys were actually busy, you had a real good opportunity to bat a little bit higher up the order, and kind of prove your worth. So when I did get that opportunity, I remember, I think Rhinos were playing Eagles, and remember Douglas
Hmm.
Horndal was playing, and Taibu was playing, and I managed to get 100 in that game, which I think as a youngster gives you a lot of confidence and makes you feel like at least you belong, at that standard. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
when I think back to those early days playing franchise cricket, that was definitely one innings that stood out, especially in the 4-day competition.
When you were playing your cricket professionally and you have not made your debut for Zimbabwe, um, how long of a period was that? Like, did you instantly become part of a Zimbabwe team, or did you spend, quite a bit of time in the domestic structure playing, regularly before representing Zimbabwe?
Yeah, so I think I spent about just over a year, down in the Midlands, and then when I got selected into the academy, I think I spent 2 years in the academy, and then outside of that academy, I was probably with the A side for quite a number of years. Um, and just before I nearly broke through into Zim, I actually stepped away from cricket for about 2.5, 3 years, um,
Oh, wow.
and considered actually taking up golf, um,
Oh, that's
which
a
was
bit of a
quite a big
switch.
contrasting decision, I think. And I made it into the Zim amateur squad to go down to Swaziland, which is in South Africa, to play a tournament there. And when I got down there, some of the other golfers that I was playing against were so much better than what I was. And I kind of said to them, how come you guys aren't playing professional if you guys are so much better? And they kind of said, well, we're not good enough yet. And that kind of made me think, well, if they're that good and they're not playing professionally, then what chance do I have? So when I got back to Zimbabwe, I put the golf clubs back in the cupboard, and I started to pursue cricket again. So that was when I really focused on what I wanted to achieve, and I went across to the UK, played a few seasons in the UK, and in Ireland, and I had a really good season in Northern Ireland, and that was when I got my opportunity in 2009 with the Zim side.
Well, you made your, I think, ODI international debut against India in 2010, I believe. And that match, uh, you scored a match-winning half century and you were able to beat India in that game. So, can you walk us through that match and how were you feeling before the match when you were told that you are gonna be, playing your first match? And how was your experience as a, young player representing Zimbabwe?
Shishad, I probably couldn't tell you too much about before the game because I think it was a complete blur. But I do remember sort of walking out to bat and thinking to myself, sheesh, what what chance do I have, on debut against India? You know, I was batting with Charles Coventry, I think, and he's such a funny guy. He never really takes anything too serious, and I think it probably helped me a little bit because it kind of calmed me down. He was cracking jokes and all kinds of things, but he was batting really well on the other end. So it allowed me to relax and kind of get into my innings. Um, and back then, Bulawayo was Queen's Sports Club was a lot flatter than what it is today. So once I did get going, I think it was just a case of not really thinking about anything. And I think being with it being your debut and kind of new in the international world, you don't have any past experiences that come to mind. You just solely focused on the bowler running in, watching the ball, and just working out the equation. And yeah, I mean, fortunately for me, I batted really well, and I think that was probably the kickstart to my international career.
I mean, you batted with the likes of Hamilton, Masakadza, one of the finest batsmen Zimbabwe has ever produced, Brendan Taylor. Was there any pressure of sharing the dressing room with these guys, or have you had that chance prior to joining the international team and that kind of made your transition, I'm not gonna say easy, but a bit more comfortable?
Yeah, and I mean, with Brendan Taylor, I'd obviously played quite a lot of school cricket against him.
Okay.
Also played Zim under 19 with him as well. So it did make it a lot easier coming into the change room. He made his debut a long time before I did. So seeing him succeed as well also gives you that motivation. As if to say,
Okay.
well, I was in the under 19 squad with him. So if he can do what he's doing now, then surely I can also get there. And yeah, I think batting with those guys, they were so good at what they did. I think it allowed me just to focus on my game and what I was good at. I didn't need to try and do something out of the ordinary because they were already so experienced by the time I got there. Even though I'm probably a little bit older than Brendan, but a few years younger than Hamilton.
So when you got selected into the World Cup squad in 2011, how was that feeling? Because you actually turned out to be one of the best batsmen for Zimbabwe in that tournament. I think, if I can remember right, I think you scored about three half centuries in that tournament. And how was that experience of playing in the subcontinent, playing against various different teams? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, that was a fantastic experience. I think being involved in a World Cup in India as well. It wasn't something that I was particularly used to because you play in front of thousands and thousands of people as well. Um, but I think those conditions I was quite comfortable playing in. Although I think there was one particular game against Australia that was a day-night game, and that was back when we only used one ball. Um,
Yeah, right.
so halfway through the innings, the ball started to reverse, and that was something that you know I certainly wasn't used to, and it was something that you kind of had to adapt to on the go. So there were a lot of experiences throughout that World Cup that I think establish you as a player, but at the same time, I think gives you a lot of experience and confidence. If you are able to get through those little tough moments. But overall, being involved in a World Cup, I now look back at it and think we've struggled to get into World Cups. How fortunate were we to actually be involved with them so
Okay.
early on in my career?
Yes. Yeah, speaking of that World Cup, you were fairly new to international cricket at that point, and then playing in India in front of, a huge crowd. How did you deal with that pressure? Because obviously, who is somebody who is new in the international cricket, uh, like playing cricket on the highest level is one thing, but then when there is like crowd involved, and then when there are pressure situations, there are not many people who are able to cope up with it. So when you were, playing in that World Cup, how did you, go about your things? Because, um, we have seen a lot of, I can say an example of a lot of Pakistani players when they, come about in the scene, they tend to uh, not able to deal with the outside pressure. So what did you do that helped you sort of, get more comfortable in those settings?
Yeah, I think my personality is quite a calm sort of personality, which I think automatically helps me um, deal with those sort of situations. On the outside, I look very calm, which maybe helps other people calm down a little bit. On the inside, it's not as calm as what it looks on the outside. Um, but I think it's you know thinking about pressure, and that is only something that you experience just because of you being an elite sportsman, um, and having the opportunities to actually be under pressure. And I think what's a lot of the times when you are feeling under pressure, and you maybe panic and do something that is out of the ordinary, and then you get out and you sit in the change room and you look back and you think, well, you know, why put yourself under so much pressure? You
Hmm.
know, why? What for? So I think a lot of times when you are under pressure, I think when you break it down and simplify the equation, or simplify what's going on around you, I think it's a lot easier to deal with it. At the end of the day, it's just somebody running in with a ball, and you just have to watch that ball and react to it. All the outside noise, I think, as soon as you start to think about everything else around that, I think that's when your focus gets a lot more confused.
And is that something that a player does it by himself, or like do you seek help from other teammates, or like, your management or your coaches, or is that something you as a player need to, break it down and make it easy on you to, deal with that?
Yeah, I think every player's makeup is a little bit different, and I think maybe routines and triggers and things like that are a little bit different for everybody. I think each person has to find something that can switch them off when they need to switch off, and then a routine that switches them back on and gets them focused again. I think the main thing is that you can realize when you might be maybe drifting um, away from the plan, or maybe your focus is drifting a little bit, where you see somebody's playing a few shots, and you realize, because you all know your teammates, and you realize, well, he looks like he's feeling under pressure, and he's starting to panic a little bit. Um, and those are the little moments where, if you're batting with somebody, um, and they can understand that, you walk down and say, listen, you know, you look like you playing a few rash shots, or you look like you're just starting to panic a little bit. Just pull yourself back, refocus, your routine, to get back into um, what you're doing, and then let them work it out on their own. So it's quite important to have somebody that has the experience to acknowledge those key moments.
Speaking of key moments and keeping up with the pressure, you were part of that Zimbabwe squad that made their first ever tour to Pakistan in 2015. how was how was the atmosphere there? Because it was the first time any international team was coming. I'm sure you guys were briefed on whatever plans that the authorities may have presented to the board and to the players. How was that experience in making that decision to go to Pakistan and whatever you know thoughts you guys might have before making that trip, the experience during that trip, and now that you look back at it, how was how was that? Because I assume it's quite intimidating in my if I was to be talked about that, I think that would be very intimidating thing to be part of.
No, I think there were a lot of discussions around, whether you should go and whether you should stay. Um, and it was all just based around, safety. And I suppose if people had families and things like that, those decisions were a little bit tougher for some people. Um,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, we all felt that Pakistan hadn't had any international cricket for years. Um,
Yep.
and you could tell that they were desperate to have international cricket back in the country. So you almost felt just as safe as going anywhere else, because you felt like Pakistan would have taken every single measure to make sure that everything ran smoothly, because otherwise, if it didn't, who knows how long they would have to wait to have,
Hmm.
international cricket back again. So I think everybody made peace with that. Um, and then when we actually arrived in Pakistan, I think we didn't realize to what extent that they were going to go, um, to make sure that everything ran smoothly. I mean, we still talk about it today. The convoy that we would go to the ground in, there must have been about 40 vehicles and 3 different buses, and the whole road was cleared. And so I think when we arrived and we saw how well we were looked after, um, and the security that we had around us at all times, I mean, we felt really safe, to be honest.
And then the cricket that you guys played and the house full. I think you guys played 5 games total, 2 T20s and 3 1 days.
Yeah, I think
And
it was quite a decent tour, and it was in Lahore, um, and that wicket there was absolutely fantastic. You know,
mm,
I think it was a good fought series. And the crowds and that came in to watch, because everybody was so passionate about cricket, and that being back in Pakistan, it was a nice thing to be a part of, and to be the first ones, I think, to break the ice. I suppose you'd say. I thought, was a good gesture from Zimbabwe cricket.
yeah, I mean, we really appreciate that because I think that was the stepping stone for other teams to come. And we really appreciate Zimbabwe to make that happen.
Yeah, speaking of that series, that was your first time playing in Pakistan, and how how was the condition for you as a batter? Like I know, I mean, we have heard a lot about like the Pakistani pitches are very suitable for batters. They are flattest at the biggest you could find. But then, I think you guys mostly played in Gaddafi Stadium, in Lahore, almost all your matches. So, how was that experience as a batter? How was the conditions, and how much did you enjoy batting in those conditions?
Yeah, I know that the conditions are very batting friendly. I think if we were trying to compare, Pakistan to Zim, Pakistan wickets are, they don't really have a lot of grass on, and we found it was almost like clay that had just been rolled hard. Um, so the ball's very true, skids on nicely, especially under lights. Um, I think the skiddiness under lights is probably something that we struggle with a little bit to begin with, just because we've only gotten lights, recently at the Rice Sports Club. So that skiddiness is something we always have to get used to whenever we toured somewhere else and we played day-night games. With the seam and then spin as well, which skids onto you a lot quicker. But what I do like about subcontinent is the outfields are always so quick. You get such good value for all your shots. So it does make batting so much more enjoyable, because all you need to do is really time the ball, and you get such good value for it.
And did you like the food there when you were there?
Food was spicy, but over the years, I've actually gotten used to slightly spicier food than normal. And I think it's just from touring Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. So at least I can hold my chili a little bit better now.
Yeah, it is. I think that's just how the cuisine is. I feel like the spiciness is like, just if it's not spicy, then it's not good. That's how they kind of look at it.
Yeah.
But speaking of, I think recently Pakistan or Zimbabwe has done a lot of. So they've been really successful against Pakistan. I know I think it was 2020 or 2021 when you guys won that one-day game in Rawalpindi against Pakistan. You guys won the test match in 2013 against Pakistan, and recently you were the captain in the World Cup game against Pakistan. How was that? You were the captain, last over. Walk us through that, please, because I can
Oh,
tell you I
shit.
was driving and I had the phone up. I I was really glued onto that TV screen or mobile screen, and I was really like just cursing everything, like how the hell did we got this so close? But you were there. You had the first class seat to that entire madness. So please walk us through that.
Well, I think leading up to that, arriving in Perth and walking into Optus Stadium and just thinking, wow, like we've never played in a stadium, like this. It was incredible just to be there. And then we were thinking, being in Perth, the wickets are really, really fast and bouncy. And we've got to deal with Shaheen, Harris Ralph, Nazim, and we're thinking, geez, how are we gonna tackle this game? And after only getting I think it was 123 on the board,
Yeah.
we thought, we've got very slim chances of getting over the line. But as the game progresses and we got a little bit lucky with a few wickets, and the belief starts to come back, and you start thinking, well, maybe just maybe we might get over the line. And we got down to that last over, and I threw the ball to Brad Evans. Who's also quite young. He hasn't played a lot of international cricket. And there was so many discussions going around. People saying bowl Yorker, bouncer, good length, slower ball. All the options were coming out, and you're just trying to focus on one thing so that you can try and execute it as best you can. And I think when that last ball was bowled and Shaheen hit it, fortunately we had Sikandar Raza at long on, who's extremely quick. And I remember the ball coming into the keeper, and Regis Chikava dropped it. And
Oh yeah, I remember
that little moment there felt like a decade. It was just, it took so long for him to actually pick the ball up and take this, and you could see everybody sort of starting to celebrate. And then the ball came out of his hands, and then there was almost like everything just went dead still. Um, and then he took the bails off, and yeah, the celebrations and that were fantastic. I mean, you still look back now and think, geez, did we really do that? At a World Cup in Perth, when we kind of felt that the odds were kind of against us because conditions really suited Pakistan, especially playing under lights.
Speaking of that game, when you guys, were done with your first innings and you had that, total to defend, um, what when you look back, what would you say the reason why Pakistan was not able to chase? Was it because the pitch got difficult to bat on under lights, or you guys were bowling too good, or they were just not, um, or they had the wrong short selections, chasing up to that total? Like, because we have always seen these low scoring encounters have always either been go to the last ball and becomes a thriller, or the chasing team just fails to chase these low totals. And I'm just trying to pick up the psyche or the mentality in these low scoring totals. Like, how do you go about chasing these low scoring totals in such a big stage?
Yeah, I think it's, I suppose all these close games sometimes can be quite hard to dissect because there's so many different things that you can look at and, shift your focus to. I thought that Pakistan were really going to come out and play positive cricket right from the start because all you needed was a quick, fast partnership, and the game was pretty much squashed. And because we had bowled a decent power play, we hadn't gone for many runs in the power play, which we thought was going to be the 6 overs that Pakistan would target, to kind of finish the game right there and then. And we picked up a few wickets, and they didn't really score too many runs. So you kind of felt like you were always in the game. Um, and I think the other thing that maybe makes it a little bit difficult is the square boundaries at Perth were huge, but the straight boundaries were relatively short. So I suppose game plans and things like that then come into play quite a bit, and the execution of that. And like I said before, I think we did get a little bit fortunate with a few wickets. I think somebody got caught down the leg side, things like that. But yeah, but we thought Pakistan would really come out with a much more positive attacking game at the start than what they did.
Just one last question on that. So, which wicket, uh, when fell down, you guys thought like we have this game now, like we can really win this game? Like, I feel like I think when Shan Masood got out, that's when I had, as a fan, that weird feeling that Pakistan is gonna lose this match. But then, like when you guys were there, which was the moment that made you realize, like, hey, like this is the game for us to lose now. Like we are dictating this game now.
I think there were a few sort of moments. I think when Shan Masood got out, that was probably one stage where we thought, we're starting to get on top. I think Iftikhar's wicket was also a big wicket for us, which I think we got fortunate because he was the one that was caught down the leg side. But then even, I think when we got Nawaz out, I think that was when we really thought we've got a chance, which was actually right at the end because we knew that he was still a good striker of the ball.
Hmm.
And basically all he needed was one boundary. So we kind of had our doubts all the way right up until the end, but him getting out, I think second last ball, then really put it in our favor just because you had Shaheen on strike. And that was what we were trying to weigh up was, do you go short and let him hit to the long boundary? Or do you go full and if you miss, then he's obviously heading towards the short boundary. But you also know, yeah, out to the long boundary, if it goes in between those two fielders, it's such a big boundary, you can easily get two. So
Right.
it was, yeah, there was so much back and forth and ebbs and flows and things like that. Yeah, it's probably one of the most exciting games I think I've ever been a part of.
How difficult is to be a captain in that specific time of that last over, which hardly lasts 5 minutes tops? But how difficult are those moments to like make a decision that can ultimately, decide the game?
I think you, I think you end up praying a hell of a lot more than what you used to. Um, but I think the fortunate thing for me was, you had Sikandar Raza who's got a lot of experience. You also got Sean Williams, and I think I'd be silly not to get those opinions, before making a decision, so that you can try and make the best decision possible. And then once you've made that decision, I think it's just being at peace with the outcome. Um, so when we decided we're going Yorker, we just said, well, that's it. Commit to it fully. Don't doubt yourself at all, and try and execute it as best as you can. And if we come out on top, that's great. If we don't, at least you stuck to a plan and you tried to execute exactly what you wanted to do.
I'll be very honest with you. When Pakistan lost that game, I had given up all my hopes because from that point on, things had to go extremely biasly for Pakistan. And I don't know how much other cricket players follow other team games, but the game against Netherlands and South Africa, that game, I don't know if you watched that in Adelaide, but the way that game went off, I was like, man, Pakistan's going in the finals. No way in hell this is not like the way South Africa played, the way Netherlands dominated that game. The entire World Cup for Pakistani fans was a big roller coaster, and yeah, that was just interesting tournament to say the least.
No, it was. There always seems to be, these upsets, and even the last T20 World Cup in the USA and the Caribbean. I mean, those conditions I think just brought so many teams closer together, especially in a T20 format.
So just going forward with where your career stands at this point, like what are what's your like goals now on in your career? Like, do you have a mindset or where you have decided like when you're gonna end your career, or is there anything that you need to achieve um before you will, say goodbye to your international career?
So I don't really have I suppose, a year as to when I'm going to end my career. I think for the moment, I'm trying to keep my body in the best shape possible and give myself the best opportunity to play for as long as I can. Um, I think the decision will almost be made for you when you start to realize that the motivation is maybe not there as much as it was. Maybe you're not enjoying the game as much as you were. But for now, I'm still loving cricket. It's exciting to see quite a few young guys coming through as well in our system. Um, and I think if I can leave Zimbabwe cricket in a better place, when I do step away and give the young guys that are coming through as much knowledge and experience from my side as possible, at least I'll feel comfortable, stepping away.
All right, Craig, before we end, we have a last thing. I want to make a all-time or all format team with you. I will give you names of the players, and we will slot them, and that'll be your all format team.
Okay.
So for the opening slot, we have David Warner, Virender Sehwag, or Saeed Anwar. Out of the three, you have to pick two for your opening slot.
I think I'll go David Warner and Brenda Sehwag.
Okay. For your number three batter, you have Sachin, you have Virat Kohli, and you have Ricky Ponting.
Shit, I've got to pick two out of those. That's a tough one, eh?
Yeah. Or you can do 3-4, up to you.
I'll go Sachin and Virat.
Okay. For your number 5, you have Mike Hussey, you have Michael Bevan, and you have KP. Which one of the three you will pick for that one number 5 slot?
I got to pick one out of the three.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I'll go Mike Hussey. I enjoyed watching Mike Hussey. Mike Hussey, KP it's a close one, but I think Mike Hussey.
Okay. So that keeps you at 5. We gotta get a wicket keeper in there. So we'll get A.B. de Villiers, we get MS Dhoni, and we get
Gilchrist.
Yeah, Gilchrist.
I gotta go AB.
AB? Okay.
I love watching AB play, so I gotta back him again.
Okay. So you have your top 6. You have your Virender Sehwag, David Warner, Virat Kohli, and Sachin as your top 4. You have Mike Hussey as number 5 and AB as number 6. Now for your all-rounders, what would you rather have? Shahid Afridi, Hardik Pandya, or Karen Pollard?
I think I'll go Shaheen Afridi. I think just for his bowling, I think I'll get him in there.
Okay. So that gets your top 7. So for your first opening bowler, Dale Steyn. Oh, this is gonna be tough. Dale Steyn, Wasim Akram, or Brett Lee. Or sorry, Glenn McGrath. Sorry.
Oh man. I think for skill sets, I'll go with Wasim. He was a legend. I got to stick with Wasim.
Okay. For your second opening bowler, you got Okar Yunus, you got Brett Lee, and you got
Ambrose.
Curly Ambrose.
The big tall fella.
Yeah.
Probably. I think I'll go Curtly Ambrose.
All right. So that leaves you with 2 more slots? Yeah. So for your spinners, Shane Warne. I have to make it tough for you. Shane Warne, Murli, or Anil Kumble.
Oh man. Shane Warne, Murli. Sheepers. I think I'll go. Oh man, this is a tough one. I think I'll go with Shane Warne.
Okay. So you have 2 spinners and you have 2 leggies and you have 2 seamers. Actually, yeah, 2 seamers. For the third one, would you rather have a seamer, or would you also have to have a spinner?
I think what are we in?
This is
in Hyderabad on day 5. I think I'll take another spinner.
So let's do Saklan Mushtaq, Graham Swan, and Ravi Ashram.
I'll take Saklan.
Saklan, wow.
I think I'll definitely take Saklan, yeah.
And who will be your captain?
Out of that 11, I'll go with AB de Villiers.
That's actually a pretty formidable 11. I think an all-format, all-condition team.
Yeah, those are some tough choices. There's so many good players in there.
I actually thought you might choose Ricky Ponting with Virat, but at least that's what I would have gone with. Personally, I'm a Ricky Ponting fan, but it's
Is that?
just
No, I
yeah,
enjoy it like that. I think that Australian era with, Ricky Ponting, Mark Waugh, Steve Waugh, Shane Warne, Sheepers, Hayden, that was McGrath, being a youngster and watching that era play, especially Test cricket. It was so exciting. I think that's where you grow that passion for the game.
yeah. You played a little bit of cricket in Australia too when you were trying to go to different. I think you played in England and Australia, local, at least club level. I think that's what I read. If that's not true.
Yeah, I think it was 2013 or 14 in Perth, for a club called Morley, and I was a little bit surprised because when we arrived there, I realized we were playing on AstroTurf, with a two-piece ball, and that thing it swung for 75 overs. So conditions were tough, but you were young and just wanting to play the game and enjoy it. So it was a nice experience for me. Yeah.
Nice. Well, Craig, I really appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you taking out the time. We've been going at it for 2 weeks or so, but I'm really glad that we made it happen. And it was really fun talking to you. And this is your last minute of screen time. You can tell our viewers whatever you would like.
No, thanks very much for having me. I know there was quite a bit of back and forth, obviously, between us to try and make this happen. But I am really glad that I managed to get on here and chat with you guys. It's been very enjoyable.
Likewise, and we appreciate your time. All right. Thanks for making it all the way out here, guys. Please go out and like and subscribe our channel. And please leave your feedback in the comments below. Until next time.